They go to Baltimore, Week 18, M&T Bank Stadium. The Baltimore is going to be hush-hush about whether Lamar and everybody's going to play this week. If Lamar Jackson takes the field in Week 18 after locking up the MVP, it's not like it's like there's nothing to fight for. You're going to win the MVP. You already won the AFC. There's just no need to put somebody out there unless you're thinking, okay, gotta keep the rust off. Lamar Jackson's injury history, there's no chance that this guy is taking the field if I'm the Baltimore Ravens in Week 17. You got to expect a handful of backups for the Ravens this week. Steelers need some help. The way this breaks down is they have to beat the Ravens. They're 3.5-point favorites to start it off with. From there, they could get it on Saturday night if the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts tie. We'll see what happens there. If not, the Kansas City Chiefs eliminated the Cincinnati Bengals. Therefore, it is the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills who give them some hope. The Jaguars play the Titans, who have lost pretty much everybody. So, that's a worrisome opponent. But Trevor Lawrence still dealing with some injuries. Buffalo's traveling or has to lose to Miami, who will fight for the number 2 seed in this one. Potentially the AFC East. It is the AFC East as well. If they lose, the Steelers are the 6th seed. So a lot could go on here. A little confusing, but just to make it simplistic, Steelers got to win. You need either a Colts or Houston tie or Jacksonville or Buffalo to lose. You're looking at this a week out, no idea what's going to happen. You thinking the Pittsburgh Steelers find their way into the postseason. How realistic is this? How high should someone's hopes be if they're sitting around, New Year's Day having a conversation with Uncle Bill, talking about, the Steelers could get this done? You saying yes, or you saying, I don't know about that one?
I'm feeling pretty confident, quite honestly. Well, not only because, of what you let off with, the idea that the Ravens are going to rest a bunch of guys. I mean, I saw Jim, is it Jim or John? Who coaches it's John. It's John. Jim coaches Michigan. Okay. I knew that. Yeah. But I saw John Harbaugh saying, we're going to have a conversation with Lamar about whether or not he's playing next Sunday. I think that conversation is going to be pretty short, and it's going to be,
what is
you're
the
not playing. Right.
Yeah.
You want to play Lamar? That's cool. I don't really care. You can play in 2 weeks when we're actually in the playoffs. So I don't think the Ravens are going to put, many, if any, of their starters out next week. So I feel pretty confident that the Steelers will be able to go into Baltimore and get a win. But also, the Steelers don't necessarily need to win. They'll need a bunch of help, but for as much as this is kind of a crapshoot, I think that gives them a great chance of landing in the playoffs, somehow, some way. Buffalo has everything to play for going into Miami, and I feel like they play their best football against the really good teams in this league, and Miami's one of those teams. So and it seems like that Buffalo Miami game is really what kind of hinges things,
Yes,
Buffalo losing down there or Buffalo winning, Buffalo losing down there is certainly possible. And going on the road, that's definitely tough. And I feel like that's the one. It's unfortunate you got to wait all the way for Sunday night after playing on Saturday afternoon, but I don't know. I think there's enough ways for this all to just the scenarios where they don't make it in seem, fewer and further between than the ones where they do actually make it in. I think the Steelers have done such a good job of rallying down the stretch, and I think they've set themselves up in the best opportunity possible. And that whole, if you win in Baltimore, you give yourself such a great shot. There are only, I think maybe 3 scenarios, period. 3 of, I think, maybe 15 or 16, maybe up to 20 scenarios where if the Steelers win, they don't make the playoffs. It's, you take care of business in Baltimore, which again, I feel like is extremely likely. And your odds just skyrocket because there's only a few scenarios where everything else shakes out the way that you get left out. So it really starts and ends with winning in Baltimore. And then I think since that's super likely, I feel like everything else hinges on just getting a win there.
That's all. That's all. I agree. I think that's all Mike Tomlin was asked yesterday. Do you even pay attention to anybody else? No, you can't. You win in Baltimore, you give yourself the best opportunity to make the postseason. I remember sitting around. I was a kid. I don't even remember how old I was, but you could still ask me to this day. I went out. I owned like 5 jerseys as a kid growing up. They were all super random. It was like a James Harrison, a Roy Williams wide receiver for the Lions, a Julius Peppers, and then a Ryan Fitzpatrick. Oh, I want to say it was a Bills jersey, because it was Ryan Fitzpatrick who played for the Bills and Mark Sanchez played for the Jets at the time. The Steelers needed the Jets to lose. I remember sitting on my mom's couch growing up, watching this game, thinking all day. My dad's chatting in my ear because he loves, everybody knows my dad's a Broncos fan. He loves to talk shit. And he's like, there's no way, man. There's not. Have you watched the Jets play this season? There's no chance that they're getting in the playoffs. And maybe this was the other way around. Maybe it was the Jets needing to lose. I don't know. Ryan Fitzpatrick played for a lot of teams. And I remember watching that game the whole time. And the second that, again, I want to say it was the Bills, won this game, I looked at my dad and I went, "What's up?" And he went, "Man, that's just something the Steelers get away with." And that's what I think that's the first thing I thought of in this situation is just, this is a situation where the Steelers have been in time and time and time again. And somehow the NFL gods are just like, we need the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. Like, they just make the playoffs better. I don't know why. It's not like they win recently, but they make they make the playoffs better. They make football better. And sometimes they just get a little edge. That's how I look at this. You take care of business in Baltimore, the universe just tends to work in your favor. I also think that it's working in Mason Rudolph's favor, because I'm a big, somewhere, somehow, this guy got some real good karma for being as professional as he has been throughout the years with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that this is his time to shine. And whoever's out there controlling all the sticks, writing the script, they're looking out for Mason Rudolph. I could see it happening. I don't know. Everybody's going to like freak out. It's going to be a really tough week. I think it just comes down to, you take care of business in Baltimore, you feel really good. Last week we were talking about the hater parlay. I mean, the hater parlay like almost worked out. It came very close to working out, and the Steelers are more alive than they were heading into the week somehow. So somehow it just always works itself out. And I know it's tough to sit here a week away and say, oh, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Who knows? What I do know is the Steelers have set themselves up in a very, very good situation.
Right. And throughout the season, I've been you kind of look at Baltimore and you think, okay, yeah, they're among those contenders, but like, I think very rarely throughout the season anyone really looked before, they really took it to the 49ers a couple weeks ago. No, I feel like very few people looked at them as like legitimate Super Bowl contender, one of the best teams in the league, like had one of the best records, but I don't think anyone believed in them.
Yes.
The reason I thought that they were always going to kind of be one of the better teams in the league was because they very rarely like tripped over themselves,
Mm-hmm.
They very rarely had an embarrassing loss that just like completely took the air out of their out of their season. And I think the Steelers have kind of done a little bit of that over these past 3 weeks. While everyone else is kind of dealing with injuries and stumbling a little bit, losing to teams that they shouldn't, the Steelers have taken care of business. And I feel like that's all you need to do this year. Like, there are enough teams that, are dealing with injuries, like I said, dealing with setbacks, and, the odds that someone just kind of loses himself and lays an egg one week is so high, because that's what's happened all season long.
Yes.
That's just what's happened in the NFL this season. So the Steelers, if they're just able to do their own thing, take care of their own business, like they've been doing the past 3 weeks, that's like all you could ask for. And I feel like that's the best way to give yourself the best shot at winning this season in the NFL. It's not doing anything spectacular. It's not being a world beater. It's just doing the little things and not losing games that you're not supposed to. And this game against Baltimore, as we keep going back to, because they're not going to play everyone, because there's going to be a bunch of backups on the field. This is just a take care of business game.
Yep. That's exactly what this is. And look at Mike Tomlin. Everybody says the Arizona Cardinals, the New England, they'll bring up a billion games. The Steelers should have won those games. There's a difference between like middle of the season, Mike Tomlin loses big games that he shouldn't lose, and week 18, Mike Tomlin big games that he shouldn't lose, because week 18 is a whole other animal. And that's like, when you are in a corner, that is when Mike Tomlin coaches his best. And he always has to get them to a corner. Like, he's always the guy that's like, all right, let's back ourselves into a wall a little bit. But once you're there, man, there's nobody who does it better than Mike Tomlin. I agree. I think that's where we are with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know. It's going to be an exciting weekend of football. And for everybody who says, and I said this before we got on the show, everybody's complaining about, oh, the Steelers, they're going to have to wait until Sunday Night Football. I can't believe it. I don't know, man. If I'm a fan, like if I'm a Steelers fan and I'm sitting around and they get a win on Saturday, that is the most intense and exciting weekend of football you could ask for. Like anybody who's a real football fan is sitting around. They don't have plans this weekend. They have told their entire family that they are not moving from the couch. They have their pizza spot already ready to be ordered from. The beer is in the fridge. There's no, like, this is the best weekend of football that you could possibly ask for, especially with everything on the line. And the Steelers get to send it off. You know, like,
right.
You get a win at the beginning of Saturday, and you have the next 24 hours or so to just sit there and pray to whoever you pray for that the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. It doesn't get any better than that.
Right. It's like, oh no, I gotta, watch a bunch of compelling football for the rest of my weekend after getting, like, what are we doing? Like, who's complaining about that? Yeah.
No. I saw a lot of people, and I was like, no way, man. This is as good as it gets. You could not, whoever wrote the script this year absolutely killed it, because this is as good as it gets for the Pittsburgh Steelers and really for the NFL as a whole.